Those hooded eyes lowered briefly, then lifted to look directly into his son's. "So, Edward, when were you going to tell us?" Edward felt uncomfortable and shifted on his chair. "About what?" "About that," said his mother, placing a bowl of soup in front of him and raising her chin at the envelope face down by the cruet set at the table's centre. Edward began, "Where did you—" "Now then, son," his father cautioned, "we weren't spying on you, if that's what you're thinking." His mother sniffed as though to punctuate and reinforce the comment. She folded her hands on her lap and said, "I was putting some of your clothes in the wash, that's all. I mean, those jeans were ready to walk off on their own." So the fuck what? Edward thought, angered at being treated like a kid once again. He'd been wearing those same jeans for over a week, and probably they were now musty. But it was his own smell, after all, of which he was never especially conscious, and frankly, he didn't much care for the clinical hyper-cleanliness his suburban parents valued so highly. "That," he corrected as he slid the envelope towards himself, folded it and thrust it into the top pocket of his shirt, "was in my jacket." His father said, "That was filthy as well. Honest to God, Edward. If you can't discipline yourself, how in Christ's name will you tolerate someone else doing it?" Edward threw his soup spoon back into the bowl. Splashes of pea and ham soup spattered the tablecloth, and his mother leapt to her feet, went to the sink, and returned with a damp cloth to wipe it up. "Leave it, Sarah," Dave Franklin cautioned. "We haven't finished talking to Action Man here." Sarah sank back onto her seat, but wrung the damp cloth between her hands. "I had this stupid idea, son, that you were determined to finish university." This statement was quite true, or had been until January when, well, he had no real desire to discuss that with his parents, or anyone else for that matter. But that winter had changed him in a way he didn't fully understand, and when he recalled the incident, a chill of fear ran through him. It was as though he were a lock, and the tumblers had been turned with the wrong key, leaving some of them stuck in position, preventing the door to the life he'd originally planned for himself from opening. Edward said, "I did, Dad, honestly, but things changed, and well, I just can't do it, not anymore." His mother reached out a hand as if to give him a comforting touch, but when she turned to her husband to seek his approval and didn't get it, she withdrew it. Dave Franklin sighed. "Well, I suppose a degree isn't the be-all and end-all, but still, the army?" Edward was acutely conscious of the letter in his pocket, as though it were made of stone instead of paper, a weight on his heart. He was fully aware, too, of the contradiction, a bookish, anti-authoritarian student, now betraying the very things he usually stood for. Edward couldn't have explained it. Relenting at last, he withdrew the envelope from his pocket, took out the offending letter and unfolded it on the tabletop. He offered it to his father, saying, "You've read it closely, I reckon. But here it is again, in case you want to check the fine print, like." Dave Franklin's face clouded. Sarah raised her eyebrows in warning, so he didn't say the words that had clearly been forming, about how a son shouldn't backtalk his father, how he and his wife had scrimped and saved to put him through university, and on, and on. There followed several minutes of uncomfortable silence, during which Edward studied the letter. It sat there on the table between the family members like a gigantic dying moth. Presently, his mother said, "What I don't get is, well, you've always gone your own way, just like I'm doing now," he said. "Well," she sniffed, "if that's what you want to call it. But what I mean is that this isn't like you." She eyed the letter suspiciously, as though it might suddenly leap into the air of its own accord. "It's not as though you've ever had any truck with convention or authority." "Practically a bloody hippie," his father added under his breath. That made Edward smile, though he lowered his face so as not to be too provocative. His decision was a reaction to something, a compulsively rash act, perhaps self-punishment. In any case, a new complexity in his life which he had no wish to analyze too closely, for fear of what he might find lying beneath that particular rock. Well, he'd made his decision, and, as his dad was given to saying, there's an end to it. "Well, Mum," he said, "I might have changed. I mean, I'm 20 now. For all you know, I might have a recessive gene that will turn me into a civil servant the day of my 20th.